So today we're going to be taking a look at some parallel arrays. We've got some code that's already made. We're going to examine its original functionality, which displays a list of movies. It gets a choice from the user, and once the user makes a choice, it'll show the rating details for that same movie. So we have, for the original version of the code, two arrays, movies and my rating. And we're going to notice that based on how the programmer has designed the arrays will work in parallel. And that means that they're using one common index number to refer to the same details across multiple arrays. So let's take a look at how this can be set up just as an idea inside something like Excel. So over here we have the stand-in for the array name, really movies since it's plural. And then in the center here we have what would be the index number for the array. And then rating is standing in as a second array that the programmer might set up to work in parallel. So what this means is if the movie is Clerks, its index number for the program is 1, and the rating in a separate array would be 8. So if I looked at movies sub 1, I would get Clerks. And if I looked at rating sub 1, I would get 8. And those two correspond to each other. Likewise, if I look down at something like this one here, Deadpool in the movies array is at index number 5. And within the same location in the ratings array, there is the value 10, which corresponds to the rating of the Deadpool movie. Now that you have the idea of how the arrays are conceptually set up, let's take a look at the current status of this code. So since this is written in HTML and JavaScript, I've got a web page open to the code, and by hitting F5, I'll just refresh it so we can see what's happening. So as you can see, it provides a list of movies. They're numbered 1 through 6. Notice that there's a difference between the index number and the numbers we're seeing here. So we'll take a look at how that happens in the code. But this is for the user to see, so we're making it a list that makes sense to a regular person. All right, so if I wanted to find out, for instance, the rating of Kingsman, I would type in the value 1, hit OK, and then see that sure enough, I rated it as a 9 out of 10, which corresponds to what we were thinking conceptually over here. Even though the index number for the program is really 0, the user was able to pick number 1 out of the list. Okay, so I'll run that again, hit F5, and if I hit 4, that's corresponding to Green Mile, and then sure enough, it shows me the rating. So Green Mile over here, which is index number 3, corresponds to the rating of 8. So let's take a look at how this actually works inside the code. Here within a section that's labeled variables, we can see two different things, which are arrays, var movies, and notice this is how the array is set up with the square brackets to enclose all the details. And then the second array that we're taking a look at is the one called my rating, and likewise it is set inside square brackets. One difference to note is because movie names are strings or text, they have to be enclosed in quotation marks. The my ratings are numeric values, so they are not enclosed in quotation marks. So cleverly then, there's a function that's created down in the function section. And what this does is it uses a for loop to build up the display, and each time the loop iterates or goes up to its next value, it grabs a movie, and then we'll add it to the list. The /n is giving us a line note here that as we're building our display, we're saying I plus 1, and that's because the arrays really start at 0. So instead of making our list shows 0 for the first movie and having the person actually type in 0, we're purposely saying add 1 so that our index number is going to be increased for the display, but it's really not changing where the array lives. So just kind of take note of that, and then we'll point this out in the next movie as far as why we're doing this part later on. once this is all done and the for loop is finished, down here we can see that this is, in fact, the display that we're seeing. So it's using an alert box. It tells us what we picked and what the rating was for that. So that's a pretty good setup on how to get going with a code using parallel arrays. In the next installment, we'll talk about how to add more arrays and then also allow the user to add details so that during the running of the program, they can add new things to the arrays.